Thanks for being here, everyone. Come on in, like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21, where we talk hot topics, trending topics, what's going on around the world, in the news, and what's trending. We're going to get straight into the topic. Just allow me a few moments to get into the system to do my disclaimer. I hope everyone is having a great morning. I appreciate you all for everyone that subscribes. I appreciate everyone for hitting the like button. And thank you, thank you, thank you for helping me this year in meeting my goals. So we're going to get straight into what's being talked about. Just give me a few seconds. Let me do my disclaimer. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's go ahead and get into my disclaimer. Okay, so there's that. That worked out today. Okay, good. Um, all comments are alleged, period. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. Please like the video. Yeah, thumbs up the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here and thanks for watching. Okay, so there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and get in straight into the clips. Like the videos you guys come in. Like the videos you guys come in. Let's go here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. Like the videos you guys come in.
Certainly the most visible and humiliating political defeat for Donald Trump in his second term. Today's vote to release the Epstein files is the most visible and humiliating political defeat for Donald Trump in his second term. But as the Wall Street Journal points out, it is just the latest sign of pushback within his own party that has put him on a path toward lame duck status earlier than anyone imagined 60 days ago. Just take what's happened this month. November started with a rebuke of Donald Trump with widespread losses for Republicans in elections, literally from one side of the country to the other. Following that, Republicans in states like Kansas, Utah, and Indiana, deep red America, told Donald Trump no thank you after he pressured them, and J.D. Vance pressured them to redraw their congressional maps to gerrymander more seats for Republicans. Even on Capitol Hill, Republicans have quietly been blowing off Donald Trump a little bit, certainly more than usual. Trump has spent the last month urging Senate Republicans to kill the filibuster, which has been completely ignored by nearly all Republican senators. And his latest proposal to send struggling Americans tariff rebate checks of more than $2,000 because of his own harmful tariffs have garnered little support on Capitol Hill. It might not sound like a lot, but as someone who's covered this story for 9 years, trust me, it is a sea change for the Republican Party that has usually replied with how high when Donald Trump says jump. The Wall Street Journal adds this, quote, since his election in 2016, Trump's ironclad hold on his party has been a defining feature of his presidency. Silence among GOP lawmakers has been the dog that didn't bark, and for a really long time. And now they're starting to yelp a little bit, said Charlie Cook, a nonpartisan political analyst and former publisher of the Cook Report. They're kind of stepping out, but gingerly, he said. I want to bring in NYU law professor and legal analyst Melissa Murray, also joining us, managing editor of The Bulwark and MS Now contributor Sam Stein. Let me be the first to say we will throw no parades for the Republican Party. In slightly less cowardice, which is what I would call it. It's not courage. It doesn't come close to resembling courage. But it is slightly less cowardice than has been the hallmark of the GOP for the last 9 years, Sam.
Yeah, I actually think I'm more bullish on it than you are, to be honest with you. Because for the past 8-9 months, it's just been acquiescence, and not just by Republicans, obviously, but by law firms, by academia, by big business, and so on and so forth. And so what you've seen over the past couple of weeks is, in fact, substantial, right? I mean, it was only 4 Republicans on discharge petition, but they withstood an incredible amount of threats from Trump, right? You had Lauren Boebert literally brought into the Situation Room with the Attorney General and the FBI, urging her to take her name off the petition. That's not small. You had Tom Massey withstanding really horrific, nasty attacks on his dead wife by the president, who also has encouraged a primary challenge to him. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who the president unendorsed and then came up with some churlish nickname about Marjorie Taylor Brown. It's dumb. Don't worry about it. But it was substantial. And they all said, no, we're going to do it. And look, obviously the more damaging thing that will happen from this is and the more important thing, really, is the revelation of files. But equally important is that you now have an example of when Republicans do bandy together, they can, in fact, force the issue on their own terms. And it's not lost on me that there was a second discharge petition yesterday that got the necessary signatures, 218 in the House. That's to restore union rights to federal employees, because a number of moderate Republicans this time decided to sign on to it. So look, it takes one example, it takes collective action, but when you do break through, it gives a signal to everyone else that in fact you can push back on Trump and that you can withstand the pushback from him to get things done.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa, I don't even know if sort of courage enters into it. You got 43% of Americans who associate with the No Kings movement, only 30% who call themselves MAGA. You've got Trump down at 36%. And you've got in the Epstein files an issue in which 81% of Americans think Donald Trump is hiding something. It may be sort of the emotional levers of sort of fear and courage, but it may just be the crass political calculations. And I keep wondering, what is Brett Karp and Paul Weiss and the first law firm that went down there and capitulated to Donald Trump, what do they do about their marketing for the next 3 years?
So there's a lot to say about this. I mean, I think you're exactly right in sort of looking forward. Is this about courage? Is it about, finding a backbone after all of these years? Or is it just assessing the reality of what's happened over the last 2 weeks and realizing that this president has just one more term? We're already a quarter of the way through it. And this party is going to have to reassemble into some new specimen. And I think we're seeing that reassembly in real time. I think we're seeing the rebranding of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's no longer a QAnon conspiracy theorist. She's a victim rights advocate. And so we're watching this happen. I think we're going to see a lot more of this as this party starts to figure out what their identity is post-Donald Trump.
It's such a remarkable thing, you're right, to watch in real time and to not get glazed over by it. I mean, Melissa, I wonder how much skepticism you have.
Listen, I think everyone can look at what these women have gone through and express real empathy and want to see transparency and justice on their behalf. So I don't doubt the veracity of her views. But again, she's also looking at the long road. She has to. She is popular in her district. She has a future in the GOP, however it is reconstituted. She actually has an opportunity at this point to help shape the GOP as it goes forward. And this is the first part of that. So again, this could be truly a moment of real empathy, and I think it likely is, but this is also a longer road and a longer process, and I think a lot of people are thinking about what lies ahead for them and this party in this post-Trump landscape. Notice that we haven't heard a lot from the vice president. He's usually out there being the president's #1 cheerleader. He's taking a backseat. He is the one who's most likely to be the heir presumptive to all of this, and he's trying, it seems, to sell from all of this.
Yeah, it would be so interesting if the most toxic positioning for the next Republican primary is inside the cabinet, right? And if the Republicans who were outside fighting it end up being more popular with the MAGA base.
Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for tuning in. Continue to hit the like button as you guys come in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Set the stage this way. Quote, just before Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer called to pass the bill by unanimous consent, Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, a Republican who is close to Trump, walked in the chamber and gave Schumer a thumbs up. He then walked over to Schumer and shook his hand. Here is that handshake on video.
Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Let's continue.
Take a look at that picture of the Senate floor. After the only Republican in the chamber, Mark Wayne Mullen, has left. That desk in the front row across the aisle from Chuck Schumer is John Thune's desk on the Senate floor. That is where John Thune, or one of his lieutenants, is supposed to always be to object to any unanimous consent request by Chuck Schumer. John Thune knew exactly what Chuck Schumer was going to do and when he was going to do it. He knew it for 2 hours, more than 2 hours before Chuck Schumer did it. Chuck Schumer had publicly announced exactly what he was going to do. And surely, as we can tell by Mark Wayne Mullen's handshake, Chuck Schumer had told John Thune what he was going to do. He said it publicly at 3 o'clock. John Thune told every Republican member of the Senate that the unanimous consent request was coming. They call them the hotlines. It is the way the Senate leadership in each party communicates with every member of the Senate about what is happening next on the Senate floor. They use the same landline telephones that have been in the Senate offices since the invention of the telephone, and those phones alert every Senate office that there is a unanimous consent request, and every senator can give his or her consent through those telephone hotlines without ever leaving their office. And if just one senator does not consent, then that's the end of it. And those hotlines are usually activated hours before the unanimous consent request is filed on the floor. And so what Mark Wayne Mullen was sent to do in a Senate chamber where John Thune didn't even want to be seen was to tell Chuck Schumer that the unanimous consent request has been cleared by the Republican hotline. And Mark Wayne Mullen, who can be so combatively defensive of Donald Trump in Senate hearings that he looks like he might throw a punch sometimes, found himself in the final moment of the Trump humiliation in the United States Senate today, shaking hands with the United States Senator who Donald Trump hates the most. And then, at 5:20 p.m., Chuck Schumer said this.
The American people have waited long enough. Jeffrey Epstein's victims have waited long enough. Let the truth come out. Let transparency reign. And I urge my Republican colleagues, let the Senate act today. And so, I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate receives H.R. 4405, the Epstein Files Transparency Act from the House, the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration, the bill be considered read 3 times and passed with no intervening action or debate, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Senate has now passed the Epstein bill as soon as it comes over from the House. I yield the floor.
After Chuck Schumer succeeded in unanimously passing the House bill in the Senate, the humiliated and overwhelmed Speaker of the House used a lying excuse to try to explain why John Thune wasn't even there and didn't offer a single amendment in the Senate, didn't even speak. Mike Johnson claimed that because he was at dinner with Donald Trump and the dictator of Saudi Arabia when Chuck Schumer led the Senate vote at 5:20 p.m., that he didn't know what was happening. And that is a lie. The Saudi dictator didn't arrive at the dinner until 6:45 p.m. Mike Johnson also lied about what actually happened on the Senate floor, claiming that Chuck Schumer somehow pulled a fast one on John Thune, just snuck it in there when John Thune wasn't looking. As I said, Chuck Schumer announced at 3:15 p.m. on the Senate floor that he was going to ask for unanimous consent, and Mike Johnson knew that at 3:15 p.m. because it was on television in his office. Here is that moment.
Later today, I will ask unanimous consent for the Senate to hold a vote to pass the House Epstein bill.
The entire Congress knew that as soon as Chuck Schumer said it. But now, Mike Johnson has decided he has to lie his way out of his humiliation of having told his members that the Republican leader of the Senate would absolutely amend the bill after they voted for it. Here is the pathetically humiliated, lying Speaker of the House.
If you live in a
Like the
Michigan
video,
zip
like the
code and
video,
have zero-
fair use reaction clip. Like the videos you guys come in. Like the videos you guys come in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification. We're trying 50K by next month. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Any reaction to Leader Thune seeing the bill without adding amendments or changing it?
I'm deeply disappointed in this outcome. I think I've been at the state dinner. I don't know. I was just told that Chuck Schumer rushed it to the floor and put it out there preemptively. It needed amendments. I just spoke to the president about that. We'll see what happens.
So do you think he may veto it? You say you spoke to the president?
I'm not saying that.
Is he supportive of it in its current form?
We both have concerns about it, so we'll see. I was standing with the Crown Prince.
Every member of Congress who didn't know it already knows now that Mike Johnson has no idea what he's talking about when he tells them what's going to happen next in legislation. He is a liar or a fool to have suggested that the Senate would amend the bill, and all of his members know that now. It is impossible for a Speaker of the House to achieve a more complete legislative and strategic humiliation than Mike Johnson achieved today, and it is impossible for a president to lose every vote of every senator in his party in the United States Senate on a vote that is entirely about that president himself and his own personal history and friendship with a sex trafficker. Donald Trump's dictatorship over Republicans in Congress is coming apart. The Epstein files have finally broken Donald Trump's dictatorial grip on the House and on the Senate, and that is why the coverage on this program has been focused on the Epstein files this year, because it seemed like it could be the thing that finally broke the dictatorial grip, and has finally done exactly that tonight. What happens next to the dictator's grip is unknown, but remember, just a week ago, it was unimaginable that there would be a unanimous vote in the United States Senate against Donald Trump to release the Epstein we are tonight.
Like the video, fair use, reaction clip. Like the videos, you guys come in. Are you surprised that the bill passed? Many people are not. Let's continue.
Release the Epstein files. This is a big deal. Bad news for Donald Trump. In fact, he spent about 302 days fighting this. In this YouTube breakdown, I'm going to get into what this means, the news, and exactly what they're asking for. I'm Ari Melber, MS Now anchor. That's the old MSNBC, and an attorney. You can always subscribe on our YouTube. But we are in a place that has completely changed. If you ask someone at the beginning of the year, were the Republicans going to revolt against Trump, they would have not expected this. Indeed, it's become kind of a cliche that Republican officials, members of Congress, never revolt against Trump. So here's what they did. I'm going to start with the facts we try to do around here. The request for these files is broad. As you probably know, if you're watching this video, you're interested in the Epstein files. There's no specific list of what is in there. But Congress has these powers, and they are asking for a very specific set or tranche of documents. And it's broad. One of the other questions was, oh, is this going to be some political BS exercise? Doesn't look like it. They want the stuff. We can get into how that works. There could be more fights ahead. But it is a big deal to have both the House and the Senate unite, and they did it so overwhelmingly, almost unanimously, that it's already a veto-proof majority, which means Trump is powerless. He's been cut out of this process. So what are they asking for? The Epstein investigation files. That makes sense. That could go all the way back to the first time he was indicted in Florida, and he got a pretty sweet deal, and the later indictment that led to him being incarcerated under the Trump DOJ, and then he was famously found dead in his cell, and we can talk about that because they want more info on that too. But number two, well, his jailed co-conspirator. They want the info on her investigations, and of course, prosecution. They want the travel records, flight logs. That could tell you manifests, which are kept pretty carefully, especially when you go around the world. Different governments have different requirements, and so accurate manifests are going to have even more people who may have flown on his plane who have been hiding it even up to now. Then it says they want individuals and government officials who have been named. We saw some of that in these new emails that just came out. This would be more. And corporate, academic, you name it, that are involved in Epstein and are in the files, in the government's possession, they want that. And any immunity deals and non-prosecution agreements. Now, as a lawyer, I can tell you sometimes you get in some trouble, and then you reach a kind of deal, and it's called this NPA or sometimes a DPA, deferred prosecution. And those are often hard to get all the details on, and there are good reasons sometimes for that. But here, Congress is saying, no, they write the laws. They may have laws that say generally the DOJ gets more secrecy. They're now demanding that out. This is a big one. Number 7, the bill that just passed says they want internal DOJ communications. That's bad news for Trump if they have been doing a cover-up. And in my other breakdowns, I've already reminded you about some of the public facts that we know. Pam Bondi said there was a client list, then there wasn't. Said there was nothing else to investigate, and then as this heat built, she claimed, after Trump demanded, they were going to start new investigations. Well, that looks like a cover-up or malfeasance of the DOJ. They want the internal communications. That might be harder to get. Indeed, judges might say on some of these, well, there's a reason why the DOJ gets some secrecy there. It could also go back to other administrations. Then it says all communications, memoranda, directives, logs, metadata regarding the destruction, deletion, alteration, misplacement, or concealment of documents, recordings, or electronic data related to Epstein. Now, what about him? It says relating to Epstein's detention and death or any investigative files. That's really striking. That is the government of the United States, both houses of Congress, both parties, basically saying that there's a legitimate avenue of inquiry there. And you may say, well, that doesn't mean that he didn't commit suicide in his cell. The government has asserted. But they're not investigating the moon landing. They're not investigating every question that's ever happened. And I get why people are cynical and skeptical, but a lot just changed. And this is the government of the United States raising the question of whether there is more to the story. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean he was definitely murdered in his cell. But they are worried about, at a minimum, obstruction of justice and whether people were hiding that or destroying materials. If you're wondering, okay, who would that hit? Well, first it would hit Bill Barr and the Trump DOJ, which was in charge when Epstein was in that prison under federal custody in the first term. But after that, the Biden DOJ came in. This could affect anything they did if they did anything. And when the government works, you have that kind of transparency. I get why people are cynical and we hear about partisanship. This could, depending on what happened, be a headache for a lot of people in both parties, but they want to get that material. Number 9 says documentation of Epstein's detention or death related, including incident reports, witness interviews, medical files, autopsy reports. Now, that matters because the Inspector General of the DOJ did a review of Epstein's death. But we don't have all the documentation. You can go look that up on the internet if you want. It's called the Justice Department Inspector General Review of Epstein. It was released during the Biden administration because they were reviewing what happened. But there might be material from there, witness interviews or other material that is not public. We've seen a lot of questions about that, and there was missing video as well. So that's what's actually in here. If you got bored or said this is too much in the weeds, that's fine. When we do the news, we have the headline and the big screaming news, and we show the clip of what happened in Congress. This is more detail. But I do think it's important because right now things have changed. I've mentioned there's an old saying, it's a thin line in politics between the impossible and the inevitable. When Trump started this year, it was impossible Republicans reject him, and reject him not on some random tariff item, but on this thing where he's fighting so hard, where many people, including MTG and other big MAGA leaders, say he sounds and is acting guilty. And yet, once the pressure came out, everything changed. Why did that happen? Well, we still have a democracy. There are rules in the House where you can override the Speaker. That's what they did. There are subpoenas that still work and that are enforced by courts, which means when the Congress asked the Epstein estate for materials, and by the way, there's probably overlap between the emails that just came out, which have a lot in them, and materials that are in the DOJ files. You can cross-reference that to see whether it's accurate. But
like the video, like the video. As you guys come in, like the video as you guys come in. Don't forget to hit subscribe. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Make sure you turn on your notification. There's about 197 in the building. Let's get the likes up. Please double tap that screen. Let's get the likes up. Tap the screen, backspace, hit the thumbs up above the video, below the video. The like should match the views, and to hit the like is free. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
whether it's accurate, but that came out and added pressure, and then ultimately once the dam broke, Republicans who'd spent all year hiding this and deflecting and trying not to have a vote now claim to be for it. So it's a reminder that some things can work. What's next? That's where I'll close. I can just tell you anecdotally when I hear from people and some messages online, people say, okay, Ari, well, cool, but I bet they redacted everything. I bet they're hiding stuff. We're never going to see the real stuff. I get that. And it's good to be skeptical, especially of your government. That's kind of a good American tradition, nothing to do with party. But I can tell you that there's a lot of records here. So if they go down the road, the administration, of trying to break the law and obstruction, that's ultimately what doomed Nixon and Watergate. There are a lot of different ways they can get caught. Now, I take the point. It doesn't mean that you're going to immediately get the smoking gun. Nixon tried to cut out tapes, audio tapes, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court and yada, yada. It's a long story. You can read whole books about it. But I'm telling you, there are a lot of ways that could get fouled up. And so if they're asking people at the DOJ to commit a crime and do obstruction or destroy evidence, you'll find people look around at each other and go, well, you do it. No, you do it. Well, let's say nothing. Sometimes people of good conscience even resign over that. Second, if they do find those people and pull it off, where you say, oh, well, they're just going to get a federal pardon from Trump anyway, et cetera, other people know where the documents are and a lot of the material. So in our experience, while there are good reasons why things stay secret, CIA, the government, plenty of that, once it changes and Congress with the force of law, with a veto-proof majority that Trump is powerless to effect, says, no, the law is now you have to share this, yeah, it's a lot harder to obfuscate that. If you get caught doing it, you get in trouble. And then the third point I want to make related is, in this case, and I've covered it like a lot of people for a long time, we know a lot about how this started. They got a sweetheart deal in the beginning. Epstein had all these connections. I talked in our reporting about how some of them were to Republicans and he had a history with Trump. He hired Ken Starr, who was the former Republican special prosecutor. He's using his money to pull these strings. He had a tight relationship with a woman who was a lawyer for Obama, who was considered for attorney general. So in both parties, he's doing all that, right? But then by the end, when the walls caved in on him, the Southern District of New York, which is famously independent and tough, had a bunch of career prosecutors, nonpartisan people pursuing the case. If you're skeptical, you say, well, Trump can do this and that now. Remember, Trump was president then. And one of those lead prosecutors who ultimately won the case, convicting Maxwell, putting her away, was Maureen Comey. And that name rings a bell because it's not a coincidence. She's a longtime lawyer, stays out of the spotlight mostly, but was also the daughter of the former FBI director, James Comey. He used to be a prosecutor at DOJ as well. Family affair, they like to do that kind of work. She knows what's in some of the files. She hasn't spoken out. She won't do TV interviews, and there are rules about how you can, of course, speak about things because usually it is secret. That's the default in a probe, especially when it's over. But now the default's changed. Congress is changing that. Things are happening. And so someone like Maureen Comey could take a quick look at some files and say, looks like they destroyed some. And Congress, which you saw just acted, could subpoena her to testify if they think that they've asked for all this and they're getting nothing. So we are in what is possibly the middle of a very long story with a lot of documented cover-ups and one that could ultimately yield more truth and transparency and maybe more justice for the victims and deterrence so this kind of stuff doesn't happen again. If you like
the video, fair use reaction clip. Please hit subscribe, you guys. Please hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification. Let's continue fair use reaction clip.
The bill to release the Epstein files, the Senate joining late today as we came on the air, and there you have it. What we will see in the Epstein files will be, among other things, his emails, and something we didn't know last week is what 20,000 of them look like. They continue to show the very problems that many people correctly surmise and allege involved cover-ups, including political elites. There's correspondence with former Obama official and Harvard President Larry Summers. He was also, of course, someone who was doing things with Epstein and taking money from him. And today, under this pressure, even though his ties had previously been exposed, the emails, in other words, more detail, only coming from this revelation, led to his unusual announcement that he's stepping back from public commitments. He says he's ashamed. Summers maintained contact with Epstein from 2013 to 2019. That was, of course, after his initial problems and into a period of his second arrest. Summers apparently didn't care about that. These are, again, people who are very informed. He's a Harvard professor. And they had these exchanges. Speaking of Summers' dating life, Epstein in 2018 said, I'm a pretty good wingman, huh? Summers agreed. You were good. Quote, she did not want to have a drink because she was tired. Trump also came up. Epstein saying in 2017, recall, I've told you I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump. not one decent cell in his body. So yes, dangerous. Now, Summers is responding by saying that at least he wants to pull back and show some level of accountability. People can debate whether there should be more. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is the person who, amidst all of this, has not had accountability, including for his public misogyny statements against women. People remember the 2016 Access Hollywood revelation. And now he's lashing out with crude insults. This is a moment, amidst all of this, where he's talking to a woman reporter who was asking, doing her job, asking about the Epstein issue. That's where we are tonight. I want to bring in Rick Wilson, who co-founded the Lincoln Project. Alex Wagner is here. Alex?
I mean, this just quiet piggy says probably one of the most piggish presidents in American history, if not the most piggish president in American history, given the way he's demeaned and debased women and stripped them of fundamental bodily rights and autonomy. It is impossible to square the Trump that you see in these really candid moments. He had another one in the White House in his bilateral press conference, or in his pool spray with Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia today, where he's demeaning another female reporter. It is impossible to square the man who does that, and I think naturally and honestly, his attitude towards women is on display there, with someone who says he actually wants the truth to get out about Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein demeaned, debased, and abused women, and I'm not saying that what he did and Donald Trump has done are the same or on the same level, but I don't think that there's any particular. I have a very difficult time believing that Donald Trump harbors any desire to get to the bottom of Jeffrey Epstein's sins and really wants to give justice to the women who were abused and traumatized for decades by Jeffrey Epstein. You have to look at that person who calls women pigs and has done so repeatedly and think about him as the person who's now in charge of the truth about these women and their abuser getting out.
Understood. Rick Wilson, there's also been this large clash inside MAGA that Trump has failed to quell. This is his biggest loss today. And so amidst all the important things, including what Alex Wagner just gave us, a speed education on the import and those connections, there's the wider politics where he's losing. And if you can lose on this, you can lose on other things. Lame duck. Here's MTG.
This has been one of the most destructive things to MAGA. Watching this actually turn into a fight has ripped MAGA apart. The only thing that will speak to the powerful, courageous women behind me is when action is actually taken to release these files, and the American people won't tolerate any other.
Rick?
You know, what, if Marjorie Taylor Greene can break from the MAGA coalition, that sets up a permission structure where she's been a stalwart for him from the very beginning, as she's said many times. But as they see themselves under increasing political pressure from Donald Trump's mistakes on the economy, on tariffs, on jobs, they're going to start saying to themselves, you know, if she got away with it, maybe I can too. He can't go after us all. And so they start scattering like cockroaches when the kitchen light comes on. And suddenly, Trump doesn't look like the all-powerful demigod.
Not scatter when the light comes on. Like the video. There's about 147 in the building. Please hit subscribe. Let's continue.
MAGA anymore. He looks like the problematic weird uncle at Thanksgiving who drinks too much. And I think the behavior you're seeing, insulting these women reporters, etc., that is in part just natural Trump character. But I also think he's been triggered. He's under tremendous stress by this story. It will not go away. It's the one story we've ever seen where he can't just command MAGA to believe that the sky is green, not blue. He can't reshape reality for them in the same way he has in the past. I think we really are witnessing a transition in Trump's decline of not only his political power, but the fear that defined it for many people in the MAGA base.
Yeah, and you're speaking to whether he is effective at what he's doing. And that relates partly to him. Right. And there have been many hours of discussion about what he's like. And it relates partly to the bottom line, which is they can only lose 2 votes in the House. He can threaten a primary MTG. She can threaten not to vote for the GOP speaker. Doesn't make her a Democrat. She can just withhold. Now they have a House hanging by 1 vote. They could lose it before November. Sure. Why is it, in your view, Rick, as a student of all this, that this is the issue that did it? Because there are plenty of people who aren't in this daily politics universe who would say, wouldn't it be that he didn't bring down prices? Wouldn't it be that you got agents in the streets and you got soldiers in the streets in a way that traditional conservatives, and I mean traditional going back to John Adams, don't quarter soldiers in people's homes? I mean, you go back a long ways. That's not how you use soldiers. And yet this right now is the one. Explain.
Look, what it really goes back to is 2015 and 2016, when Donald Trump caught that wave of Pizzagate, QAnon, all these lurid conspiracy theories, and the MAGA base was more activated by that particular chain of conspiracy theories than almost anything else we've ever studied in polling or anything else. They really believed Trump was going to save the children. And as it turns out, as we've seen this evolve over time, Trump is an intimate of Epstein in many ways, a friend. If he appears in 1,800 instances in a tranche of 27,000 documents, they're worried now that Donald Trump has lied to them. And it's really taken 10 years for them to let this percolate through their brains and to process it. But it is now increasingly scaring them, not only that the idea that Donald Trump was a friend of Epstein's, but that he could be culpable in some of the things that Epstein did. And that is really sending them around the corner. They thought it would be that the Democrats would say, oh, well, Clinton's in the files, Larry Summers in the files, so we can't say anything. But every Democrat I've heard has come out and said, let the ball roll. Whoever's in the files, it all needs to come out. And I think it does. And I think that has really shaken the MAGA confidence in Trump being able to get away from this one.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hitting the subscribe button. Please make sure if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do.
To release all its files in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation is expected to land on President Trump's desk this morning. He said he will sign it. He hasn't said exactly when. What we do know is that this is a stunning reversal for the party and the president who had tried to block the release for months. For survivors of Epstein's abuse who have fought for years for justice, this is an enormous victory. Still, there is skepticism about what happens after the president puts pen to paper to make the files public. With me now is attorney James Marsh. He is representing victims of Jeffrey Epstein. You represent many clients, including Maria Farmer, who was the very first person to have reported to the FBI that she suffered abuse by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell back in 1996. I'm just curious how she is responding, seeing what is happening with Congress and the promise by the president to sign this.
Thank you for that question. It's really sort of miraculous what's happened to her in the last few days. She's had a great deal of health problems. She's been suffering physically from this for a long time. She got a report just a few days ago that many of her test results are positive for the first time in many, many years. So this is a real manifestation not only of the toll that it takes on victims and survivors, but how, the move towards justice and accountability can really make, in this case, a physical difference on her health. So she's very, very happy for what happened yesterday, with the realization that this is really only the beginning. You said all the files? Well, that's a big definition, all the files.
Yes. I do want to talk about what she told our Erin Burnett. She spoke to her for the very first time publicly, and she talked about this encounter that she had after being called to Epstein's offices in New York when Donald Trump, she says, showed up. Here's what she said.
Trump's standing here, I'm here, and he walks out of his office, and he goes, oh, no. He was laughing at me, and he goes, she's not here for you. Follow me, right? And he escorts him in to this other room. But he made a joke to Epstein, oh, I thought she was 16.
Wow.
Now, the White House is denying all of this, saying Trump was never in Epstein's offices. He's calling the Epstein files a Democratic hoax, and he's now pushing the DOJ to investigate Democrats only and their involvement with Epstein. When you put all that together, including their denial, are your clients and you confident that you're going to see all the files? The DOJ is not going to cherry pick any of this and release them all.
No, we're not.
Be kind in the comments. Be kind in the comments. I know somebody is not trying to be rude to me. Be kind in the comments. Like the videos you guys come in. Like the videos you guys come in, and be kind in the comments. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Confident. I mean, that's the easy answer. Our clients are not stupid. The American people are not naive. They know that it's taken decades, in many cases, to get to this point. And the curious aside about the president, he was a Democrat at the time, if you recall, before he became a Republican. So whether this is a Democratic hoax, a Republican hoax, you can change your party, you can change your tune, but you can't really change what's in the files. And our clients know that, and we feel that we've jumped the first hurdle, and we're at the sort of the end of the beginning. This is no way over by any measure.
You have filed suit against the United States government, particularly in Maria's case. What is it that you are suing for against the government, and what ultimately does justice look like for your clients?
There's been a lot of budding accountability on the part of the banks. We've seen those lawsuits. We've seen the emails come out from the estate. There have been other lawsuits against private individuals. What we do not know is what is in the federal government files. It's very important to remember that the files that were released were from the estate. All those emails, all those revelations that...
Let's get the likes up, you guys. There's 227 in the building. As you're commenting, please hit the like button. The likes should match the views. Have no problem with people commenting, but let's get the likes up. Let's get the likes up. Double tap the screen, go backspace, thumbs up the video. Thank you.
Took the world by storm, I don't know, 3 days ago. Here we are. We don't know what's in the government file. So we really feel that that is the missing piece of accountability. In 1996, when Maria Farmer made her report, Jeffrey Epstein was already under investigation as part of the Tower financial scandal. He was also under investigation and was sued by the State Department that leased him the former Iranian consulate in New York City. These are facts that people have long forgotten. But we want to go back to the beginning, find out that what law enforcement knew, I'm very happy that they listened, and the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York also has to release their litigation files. There's a huge record in the government files on Jeffrey Epstein, and we want to know who facilitated and who contributed to his rise to power. We think that will be found in the government files, and we hope for some government accountability and the creation of a fund or some kind of means to compensate these victims for the government's failure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there, and we heard from the victims with just stunningly emotional comments about how they have tried to survive all of this, and they're finally getting a little bit
been decades
of relief, at least some acknowledgement here.
Yes.
James Marsh, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking to you.
Thank you for your coverage, and keep on this story. I don't think we're near the end, anywhere near the end.
Like the video, like the video. There's about 215 in the building. Please hit the subscribe. Please hit the subscribe and turn on your notification. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
We do appreciate it. We will.
The bill to force the Justice Department to release all its Jeffrey Epstein files. It has passed both houses of Congress and will become law when the president signs it. Now, he says he will, but when and how? Unclear. Now, he does like public signings. This year, we've seen him hold signing ceremonies for such things as restoring the presidential fitness test. That's right there. He did a signing ceremony for the Genius Act, a cryptocurrency regulation law. He signed a slew of executive orders on camera on Inauguration Day, of course, including a pardon for the January 6th rioters. So, can we expect the same kind of public display when he signs the Epstein bill? Let's see. With us now, CNN political commentators Bakari Sellers and Scott Jennings. Scott is also the author of the brand new book, I mean like out yesterday?
Yes, sir.
A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought for Western Station. Soon-to-be best-selling author Scott Jennings, I'll go first to you. Will the president storm into a signing ceremony for this Epstein law? Do we expect the same kind of public attention as he's given to the Fitness Act?
Yeah, great question. I don't know. I personally wouldn't expect a lot of fanfare. I mean, it feels to me like they're just in, okay, fine, let's mode. And so, but I don't really know. I haven't asked them and I haven't heard.
Why just get over it? Why not embrace it as something to shine the light on what all these women we saw yesterday were calling for?
Well, look, I mean, there's two things going on here. They deserve all of the justice and attention that they should want or should get because of what happened to them. I still am a little puzzled why they and the members of Congress that they've been working with haven't just told the public, what they know about who was involved in this, but that's their prerogative. But at the same time, Trump, look, he thinks all of this has been ginned up to create a narrative about him that isn't true. Democrats want people to believe he had something to do with this when he had nothing to do with it. And at the same time, we are finding out that even after Trump excommunicated Jeffrey Epstein from his life, Democrats continue to remain close to Jeffrey Epstein. But in Trump's mind, the narrative is he is somehow involved in this, even though we have Democrats fundraising with Epstein, we have Epstein programming congressional Democrats like Stacey Plaskett, and on and on and on. So I think it's become a source of frustration for him on the political narrative.
But it was the Trump administration in July that decided not to release this after, of course, they said they were going to, and after President Trump was informed that his name was in the Epstein files. Bakari Sellers, to you also, Bakari, I should say, an author of, I think, at least 3 books at this point, including 1 children's books and 2 grown-up books. Great to have so many fantastic authors on the show this morning. What do you expect the president now to do with this, either publicly, and what do you expect will happen to the Justice Department in the coming days?
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in, and thanks for being here. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Congratulations, Scott, on your book coming out. That's always an amazing day for authors around the country when that occurs. But getting back to Jeffrey Epstein, I don't anticipate the president doing this with much fanfare. In fact, I am concerned about the prerogative given to the Department of Justice to scrub the files and not be fully transparent. We do know that there's no daylight between Pam Bondi and the wishes of Donald Trump, and so I don't expect the full reckoning of the Epstein files. The irony is that there are 2 pieces of irony. The first is that the person who asked for the full release of the Epstein files on the political stage was Donald Trump back in 2015. Second, you hear the Republican talking points about Jeffrey Epstein fundraising with Democrats and communicating with his member of Congress and Stacey Plaskett during a conference hearing. But that's vastly different. And Republicans are conflating the issue on that point, and they're hoping to muddy the water because the question is and surrounds the untoward activity Jeffrey Epstein had with his guest on Epstein Island, the untoward activity that others may have participated in, the fact that he was or is the most notorious child sex offender we've had in a very long period of time, and people want to know the relationships about him and with him during that time period. It's not about who he was giving money to, although that's a problem, and it's not about him communicating with a member of Congress. It's a little bit deeper than that, and they just want to muddy the water.
You guys are both good strategists and authors, and I didn't even know the books were right behind you, Bakari, when I was calling you a successful author. But Bakari, just first to you, what is the risk if the Justice Department doesn't come right out with these files, if it tries to parse them out or none out? What's the political risk for them there?
And first, Department is 2-time New York Times bestselling author. I mean, just to be completely accurate here. But the risk is, we've seen the risk. I think we've seen the risk. We've seen the GOP influencers just with the binder on Capitol Hill running out of the White House saying, we have something, we have something, we have something. And then they didn't have jack. And I think you saw the pushback from the right wing. I think you saw the pushback from the MAGA base. It appears the only thing that can separate MAGA from its leader is Jeffrey Epstein, which is kind of interesting on its face. They spent all these years just with conspiracy theories about Democrats and pizza parlors molesting children that never came to fruition, and now they refuse to actually hearken with the true issue of Jeffrey Epstein. It's rich.
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Like the video as you guys come in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. What do you think about everything that's going on in the country? Let's continue. Don't forget to hit the subscribe. There's about 111 in the building. It goes up and down. Like the video as you guys come in, and thanks for being here.
With overwhelming support in both chambers of Congress, legislation that will require the Justice Department to release all of its records related to Jeffrey Epstein will soon land on President Trump's desk, where he has said he will sign it. The measure moved quickly through Capitol Hill yesterday, starting in the House, where lawmakers approved it in a near unanimous vote, 427 to 1. The lone no vote came from Republican Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, citing privacy concerns for people who may be identified in the documents, specifically witnesses, people who provided alibis, and victims' family members. House Speaker Mike Johnson has echoed those concerns despite voting for the bill himself. Just a few hours later, the Senate unanimously agreed to pass the legislation once it arrives in the upper chamber, which is expected this morning. A senior White House official tells MS Now the president will then sign it whenever it gets to the White House. But as the Epstein Files bill makes its way to President Trump's desk, he continues to brand the issue as a distraction and a hoax. Shortly before the Senate lined up to back the legislation last night, the president posted on social media that he did not care when the chamber passed the bill, as long as Republicans don't, quote, take their eyes off all the victories we have had. And earlier yesterday, in the Oval Office, he once again sought to distance himself from his former friend and highlight Jeffrey Epstein's ties to Democrats.
You just keep going on the Epstein files. And what the Epstein is a Democrat hoax to try and get me not to be able to talk about the $21 trillion that I talked about today. It's a hoax. Now, I just got a little report, and I put it in my pocket, of all the money that he's given to Democrats. He gave me none, zero, no money to me, but he gave money to Democrats.
Well, of course, every time he says that, all he sees is evidence of his close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, of things him saying positively in magazine articles about his good friend Jeffrey Epstein, of him dancing and hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. So again, even him doing that invites blowback that he doesn't want. So I'm not exactly sure why he keeps saying things when, again, his own MAGA base isn't going to go, oh, that's a left-wing media hoax. They can't do that. Why can't they do that? Because they're the ones who've been pushing for the release of the Epstein files, while Democrats during the Biden term were going, duh, what? Didn't say a word then. It was the MAGA folks who had been pushing this. So when he insults people for pushing for these files to be released, he's insulting his own base.
Yeah, look, the call has always been coming from inside the House on this one, right? It's why the White House is about face in the first place. When they first started saying they wouldn't have more transparency on the Epstein files was so stunning and landed like a rock on Capitol Hill among people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are like, wait a second, what? I've always been part of this movement. I thought that this was part and parcel to what we were doing here, draining the swamp, lifting the veil off of the cabal that they've so long talked about in Washington and in the powerful echelons of society. This cuts so counter to the Trump movement from the very day that Lemire and I started covering it in early 2015. The idea that these were the outsiders coming in to shine a light on all of the insiders and the insidiousness of Washington and powerful circles. This really cuts against that. But I think the thing that I'm most interested in is when this bill actually gets transmitted, because the Speaker of the House was very clear that he had issues with this bill. Thune really cut him off at the pass and said, well, with a vote like 427 to 1, why would we do any amendments? We talked to the lawyers, doesn't sound like we have any privacy concerns. So that's him bucking the Speaker. But then the Speaker, after he came back from that non-state dinner last night, said that he talked to the President about this bill. And this is what he told our team. He said, we both have concerns about it. So we'll see if Trump is
supportive. And then he says, I was standing there with the Crown Prince, we couldn't talk. But he doesn't take off the table the idea that maybe there's a veto or something in here. So we have to see actually what the day unfolds with, because the White House has said that Trump would sign this bill, but it hasn't transmitted yet. And the speaker is clearly still very angry about the changes he wanted that weren't made by the Senate. So this is a bit of a live ball for us to see what actually happens. It could be it's nothing. It also could be that there's a bump in the road.
And Congressman Massey actually echoed his concern again last night that at the 11th hour, you could have the president or someone else saying, wait a minute, we can't release the files because there's an active investigation. So that is still in play and still out there, despite that overwhelming vote we saw last night. So Jim Vandehei, you look at Trump yesterday, the moments when he, as the kids would say, really crashed out, talking to a reporter, Mary Bruce in that case, and another on a Air Force One the other day. What did the kids say? Just crashing out.
Crashing out is always
he's in a tailspin.
Okay,
so
crashed out. When I hear that, it's like 9:45.
It's not good. Okay. But and then we heard Jim Vandehei, the president, a few days ago, was just a despicable exchange with a reporter on Air Force One when asked about the Epstein files and some of the emails that were made public the other day. This obviously is something that Donald Trump didn't want to be made public, saw the writing on the wall on Sunday night and said, okay, I've got to get behind this and pretend I've been behind it all along. What do you think is the impact? We don't know what's going to be in these files, but what happens when they are released?
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical that we're going to see a lot of new information that gets released. Remember, the Justice Department, both under Biden and under Trump, has been sitting on all of these documents, and there's a lot of people internally in both administrations who had a heavy incentive to get the worst stuff out, particularly if they wanted to move the investigation along. And by the way, I think there's a lot of innuendo in there, and there's going to be a legal justification to black out a lot of information that might be very tawdry, but is not illegal. So I wouldn't think you're going to suddenly get this amazing new portrait of all the grossness around Epstein and the people who affiliated with him. On the question about Trump and reporters, again, we do become immune to this a little bit, but give me a break. You're the president of the United States, and a woman asks you a question and you call her a freaking piggy? Like, in what world is that okay? If I did that as the CEO of my company, I should probably lose my job. I certainly should not be trusted by anybody around me because it's so damn disrespectful. And that question, and if you go back and roll the tape on the question where he said, that's so rude, you're so insubordinate, it wasn't even that interesting of a question. It was a question anybody would ask. It was asked in a totally neutral tone. There was no anger in it. Anybody who's skeptical, who just, I hate the media, just go watch it yourself. Your eyes aren't going to lie. Look at it, and did that seem like a reasonable question? And then did it seem like a reasonable response? If it was a reasonable question and it was an unreasonable response, why? Well, I'm guessing that those questions are starting to get under the president's skin because it's basically a controversy of his own making. He created the Frankenstein that created the Epstein obsession, and they won't let it go, and he won't let it go, and now it continues to haunt him, and it makes it almost impossible for them to do what J. Mart was talking about, which is right. You don't have to be some political Svengali to look at what happened 2 weeks ago and say, geez, what should I do? I don't know. Maybe you should focus on prices, the economy, jobs, get an anxious public feeling a little bit more confident, feel like you're putting your emphasis into getting the economy in a good place where if AI comes as quickly as people think it is, that everybody can benefit from it. When you're not doing that, people sour on you. And when people sour on you broadly,
there's about 225 in the building. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. We're trying to hit 50K by next month. Let's continue fair use.
It's a signal to your base that little by little, they can start to question you. They can start to maybe put a little pressure on you. And that's what you're seeing happen within MAGA. And that is a very, very significant change. This was a 100% total loyalty movement that is no longer 100% total loyalty. And that has political consequences.
And by the way, for anybody that does go back and looks in the MAGA base at those questions, they will see that Mary Bruce and the Bloomberg reporter were only asking the questions that they have demanded be answered for years now. Right. I do want to say, John Lemire, I agree with Jim Vandehei that I'm skeptical, and we've said it here for months now. I'm skeptical that when the files are released, there are going to be any massive revelations, which really raises the big question for me, which is why is Donald Trump fighting something so aggressively that Ken Delaney and other of our reporters have said for years?
Community is the way we find
like the video, fair use reaction clip. There's about 105 in the building. If you already hit subscribe, thank you. If you already hit like, thank you. Let's get the likes up, everyone. Can I get 50 people to double tap that screen? Thumbs up the video. Thumbs up the video. Let's continue. The likes should match the views. Thumbs up the video. Thank you. Let's continue.
So hard to keep
fair use.
This information out. When the Biden administration and people in the Justice Department had a look at these files for 4 years. Now, I'm not saying that people at the top would have leaked bad information, but we know how bureaucracies work. Stuff slips out during war secrets slip out. Certainly, if there was a smoking gun in there, it would have already been released by now. And Epstein probably destroyed all incriminating evidence
after he got arrested the first time. So again, the real mystery here is, if all of that is true, why has he been fighting this so hard against his own political best interest and declaring a war on his own MAGA base?
Well, it's not just a mystery to us. What's perhaps so startling is it's a mystery to those closest to him. As I wrote last week about the Epstein matter, his inner circle at the White House, they don't know. They don't fully know.
They don't know
why he's fighting it, why he's so upset, like what possibly could be in there. There's a chance that Trump himself doesn't totally know. This is material. There's no client list per se. That's what MS Now reporting has been all along. But there is, a trove of materials, pictures, documents, letters, whatever it might be. And it's not quite clear that Trump himself knows everything that's in there, partially because the estate has had some of it. It's not all just been in federal custody. So that's part of it here. But it clearly angers him very much. And maybe it's there's no suggestion there's something criminal about Trump, but potentially embarrassing about him or someone very close to him, J-Mart. And it is something that he simply can't shake. And it does, to Jim Vandehey's point, it has given Republicans an opening. And look, let's not call Donald Trump a lame duck just yet. But it does also feel like here, Republicans suddenly have the permission structure to question him, to rebel a little bit, and for the first time, maybe, just maybe, start to look beyond him.
Yeah, it's the first hair fracture you can see on MRI, right? You can barely make it out, but if you look closely enough and squint, you can see a slight little fracture there, right? And guess what happens to the fractures? They don't get smaller, man. They only get wider and wider, right? And so I think that's the challenge he has. And guess what? The reason he's so cranky when he gets asked about it, because the reporters who ask him those questions, that's the only intrusion of reality he has on his life. Everybody else in his world, his staff, congressional allies, the friends in New York he talks to on the phone, Sean Hannity, whatever, it's all people who are reinforcing him and bucking him up. They're all sycophants. The only non-sycophants he comes into any interaction with on a day-to-day basis are the folks asking questions.
Yeah, well, that's it. Wait, that's why Fox didn't cover the press conference yesterday. But I guarantee you, everybody in Washington, D.C. was watching. And if you look at the hosts last night on that network, they were all basically calling it, first it goes from being a Democratic hoax to now it's a Democratic scandal. And so they can do whatever they want to do, but that's all the president's watching. That's all the president's hearing. So, again, when somebody actually asks him a question that punctuates that reality, it's really angry.
He does. We covered that press conference live yesterday in our 9 o'clock hour. We were so striking that Fox did not. And it's a really good point because the intrusion of reality is so rare. Even his social media feed, it's not on Twitter anymore. He's on Truth Social. That's his own site. That's all he's seeing. And even the way the White House has sort of hijacked largely the press pool, that it's mostly friendly faces. He doesn't do large news conferences anymore.
Please hit the subscribe button. There's about 216 in the building. Please hit subscribe. If you already hit subscribe, thank you. If you already hit like, thank you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
He doesn't take questions often from sort of mainstream media reporters, and he doesn't allow reporters who ask tough questions into the pool very often. So it's even then, in those settings, it's rare that he gets a tough question. And the last couple of days, he's reacted poorly when he does.
And now he's asked ABC to have their license pulled. And Brendan Carr, what a guy.
Yeah, like the video. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great day. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Have an amazing day, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Have a great day. Goodbye. Be blessed.